Hello, this is Rodrigo from Learn English Fast, and today we are going to talk about both simple and complex conditionals. The aim of this lesson is to teach verbal and analytical reasoning for Gmat, GRE, and other important tests. But before we start our lesson, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to my channel by clicking on the button below so that you make sure you get all my tips for both grammar and vocabulary from all my videos, alright? So, what's a conditional? A conditional sentence typically consists of an if clause, which presents a condition, and a result clause. For example, if it rains, the roads get wet. So, if it rains, that's the sentence which presents a condition, and the roads get wet, that's the result clause. Alright? Those if clauses are also called the adverbial clauses of condition and present possible conditions. A number of words that introduce the adverbial clauses of condition can be mentioned. The words if, whether, even if, in case, in the event that, unless, if only, on condition that, provided that, providing that, suppose that, supposing that, as long as, so long as. First case, in the case of real or open condition, so the simple present, not the simple future, is used after an if. In the result clause, the verb may be in the present, past, or future indicative, or even the imperative. In the conditional clause, the present tense is used to express simultaneousness, and the present perfect or the past tense to express anteriority. Examples: if I don't eat lunch, I always get hungry very quickly. The simple present is used to express a habitual activity or situation. Number 2, if I don't eat lunch tomorrow at 11:30, I will get hungry quickly. In this case, the simple future is used to express a particular activity or situation in the future. Third example, if it rains, we should take an umbrella. If it rains, we might decide to take an umbrella. Or if it rains, we're going to take an umbrella, or we can take an umbrella. So in this case, we're using modal verbs and phrasal modal verbs. And fourth and last example, if anyone calls, please take a message. That's the usage of an imperative verb. Case number 2, contrary to fact, in the present or future. In conditional sentences that express hypothetical and unreal conditions, the past tense of the subjunctive mood is used in the conditional clause and the present conditional is used in the main clause. For example, if she were here, she would help us, but she's not here. If I were you, I would go for it, but I'm not you. Case number 3. Untrue, contrary to fact, in the past. In hypothetical and contrary to past fact conditional sentences, the past perfect of the subjunctive mood indicating past unreality is used in the conditional clause and the past conditional in the main clause. For example, if she had told me about that, I would have helped her, but she did not tell me about it. Case number 4. using progressive verbal forms in conditional sentences. Even in conditional sentences, progressive verb forms are used in progressive situations. For example, let's see first the true situation. It's raining right now, so I will not go for a walk. Now, the conditional sentence, if it were not raining right now, I would go for a walk. Now, another true situation. I'm not living in Spain. I'm not working at a bank. Now, the conditional sentence. If I were living in Spain, I would be working at a bank. Case number 5. Type 0 conditional sentences. Cause and effect. For example, if you heat ice, it melts. If he makes a promise, he keeps it. So these sentences are statements of universal truth or general validity. And in this type of sentence, if corresponds closely meaning to when or whenever. Such statements appear commonly in factual discussions or particularly scientific and technical material. Alright? Case number 6, using mixed tense in conditional sentences. Frequently, the time in the conditional clause and the time in the result clause are different. One clause may be in the present and the other one in the past. Past and present times are mixed in such sentences, in the sense that one of the verbal forms may express a real action and the other a hypothetical action. For example, if I had eaten breakfast this morning, I would not be hungry now. Another example, if he were a good student, he would have studied for the test yesterday. Case number 7, omitting if. The conditional conjunction if is sometimes omitted and the subject and verb are inverted. This happens very often in literary inversion structures. Let's see some examples. Were I you, I wouldn't go there. Had I known, I would have let you know. Should anyone call, please take a message. If is sometimes left out in conversational style. For example, you tell me that again, I will get angry. Sometimes two sentences can be joined with and. Take my advice and your troubles will be over. If you take my advice, etc. Okay, that's what it means. Case number 8, extra negative. In an informal style, an extra not is sometimes put into an if clause after expressions suggesting doubt or uncertainty. However, this word not doesn't give a negative meaning. For example, I wonder if we shouldn't ask the doctor to look at you. I wonder if we should ask. Okay? Another example. I wouldn't be surprised if she didn't get married soon. If she got married soon, etc. Alright? Case number 9. If so and if not. After if, we can use so and not instead of repeating or negating a clause that has come before. For example, have you got a free evening next week? If so, let's go out for a movie. I might see her tomorrow. If not, then it will be Saturday. If I don't see you tomorrow, etc. Case number 10, if only. If only is used with a past or past perfect tense to suggest a strong wish or regret. For example, if only I had more money, I could buy that TV set. Another example, if only you hadn't told Mike what I said, things would have been alright. Would can be used with if only to refer to the future, or it may have the modal connotation of willingness, intention. For example, if only it would stop raining, we could go out. Or if only she wouldn't come so late, she'd be a fine girl. Exclamations begin with if only very often. For example, if only summer would come. Case number 11. Other words and phrases having the same meaning as if. So some words and expressions can be used with a meaning similar to if. Provided that, providing that, suppose that, supposing that, as long as, so long as, on condition that, unless, even if, etc. For example, supposing that you lost your keys, what would you do? Another example, you can borrow this book providing that you bring it back. And the last example, I will give you that dictionary on condition that you bring it back next week. Unless is an adverbial of negative condition. For example, unless the strike has been called off, there will be no trains tomorrow. Provided that no objection is raised, we shall hold the meeting here. Case number 12, implied conditions. So often the if clause is implied, not stated. Conditional verbs are used in the result clause. For example, I would have gone with him, but I had to study. The implied condition is if I hadn't had to study. Another example, she never would have succeeded without our help. The implied condition, if we hadn't helped her. Conditional verbs are frequently used following otherwise. He ran, otherwise he would have missed the train. The implied if clause is if he had not run. Case number 13, if meaning although or though. If can be used with a similar meaning to although in a rather formal style of English. This is common in the structure if plus adjective with no verb. In this case, if does not give so much importance as although to the contrast, exception or concession that's referred to. For example, his style, if mannered, is pleasant to read. Second example, the profits, if a little lower than last year's, are still high. Case number 14, if plus should or if plus happen to. Sometimes we can suggest that something is unlikely or not particularly probable by using should, not would, in the if clause. If plus happen to has the same meaning. For example, if you should run into John, tell him to ring me up. Another example, if you happen to pass a drugstore, perhaps you could get an aspirin. So should and happen to can be used together. If you should happen to finish early, give me a ring. Case number 15. Clauses of condition and concession. The overlap of condition and concession. So, between these two types of adverbial clauses there is considerable overlap. Whereas conditional clauses state the dependence of one circumstance or set of circumstances on another, concessive clauses imply a contrast between two circumstances. For example, in the light of the circumstance in the dependent clause, the content in the main clause is surprising. Although he hadn't eaten for days, he looked strong. For this example, we see that although as a subordinator is the approximate equivalent of but as a coordinator. He hadn't eaten for days, but he looked strong. Case number 16, alternative conditions, whether or, whatever, etc. Condition is sometimes combined with the meaning of either or in the parallel conjunction whether or, which specifies two contrasting conditions. For example, whether we win or lose, the match will be enjoyable. So if we win or even if we lose, etc. The meaning of contrary to expectation is also present here, as the example shows. A similar meaning is present in the WH words whatever, whoever, whatever, whenever, etc. For example, I will buy those shoes, whatever the cost. And wherever he goes, he makes friends. Case number 17, if with will, would, and should. When these auxiliaries appear in the conditional clause, they are not auxiliary verbs helping the formation of the future in the conditional, but they are modal auxiliaries that express wishing or willingness in the case of will, would, and high improbability or future chance in the case of should. For example, if you will come this way, the manager will see you now. Second example, put it over there if you wouldn't mind. Another example, if you should meet him, tell him to call me. In indirect speech, it can be followed by will or would. For example, I'd like to know if you will be using the car tomorrow. And another example, can you tell me if it would be cheaper to travel by bus or by car? Case number 18, parallel structures, would have, would, would. When an if clause refers to the past, sometimes a construction with would have is used in formal spoken English. This is frequently considered incorrect but happens quite often in educated people's speech. It's not normally written. For example, if I'd had told you, I'd have gone there. Sometimes full forms are used for emphasis or in the negative instead of the contracted apostrophe D. In this case, both had and would occur. For example, I didn't see, but if I had seen. Another example, if she wouldn't have asked, we'd never have seen what was going on. Alright guys, so I hope you have enjoyed this class and I'd like to thank you so much for being with me all this time. So I'm going to ask you again to subscribe to my channel and click on the button below and make sure you get all your friends to watch our classes, okay? So they can get all my tips for international certificates such as Gmat, Toefl, Ielts, and Cambridge. So see you guys, hope to see you next time. Cheers, bye for now.